Much like smoking, if you don't flush the engines, the corrosion eats a little way at a time and it becomes a cancer. So that's kind of why I use that analogy of a smoking. It's not going to kill you this time, but it's going to kill you.
And for those people that buy like a brand new outboard, spend $20,000, $30,000, do you want that to last 5 years or do you want that to last 30 years?
If somebody's even diligent about rinsing their trailer when they get home, flushing their engine tomorrow, the first 6 hours, first 8 hours, it crystallizes and all the harm, the exponential part of the corrosion happens in that first 6 hours. So if you can eliminate that early on, flush the engine and flush the trailers immediately, that's the best solution.
The reason that people don't flush their outboards, like I think the number one reason is because they don't want to, or it's just a pain. So one time, I was living in Key Colony, right? And in Key Colony, I was on a street, it's called 7th Street. And there's a dock that runs all along the back of all these houses. There's like 50 houses or so in a row. And at night, people would walk along that dock. So one night we come back from diving, we're lobstering, I think, hook up the engine, let it flush, go in, start cooking dinner, completely forget about the water running, right? So now my water's running on the dock, and I come out in the morning, hose is still hooked up. Luckily, somebody had walked by and shut the water off for me. Otherwise, I mean, I don't even know how many gallons an hour or like how many gallons per hour a hose normally does. I think it's like maybe 40 or something. A lot more than that. A lot more than that. So
several hundred an hour. So
I would have dumped, 1,000 gallons of water out just for running, and I think
by not remembering.
Well, and it's not even not remembering. It's more just you get busy. Like, you're cleaning the boat. I
forgot to turn the water off.
Yeah, you're cooking dinner. You're getting the coolers off the boat. You're, flushing down the rods and everything.
There's a million tasks to do at the end of a day of using the boat. Whether you're just going boating and it's taking everything off the boat, and whether it's on a trailer or back up to the house or whatever it is.
Yep.
There are a lot of tasks to clean up after having a good day on the water.
Yep.
And it's interesting you bring up that you forgot the water on. That was the genesis of the Flushmaster and where it came from. My partner came and went out and was fishing one day and came home late, and same kind of thing, started flushing the engines, took a load up to the house and never went back out. Then the next morning, oh, geez, the starboard engine's been flushed. Port engine hadn't even been flushed.
He got 1,000 gallons of flush.
Right. And it's one of those things, So like when people are diligent about it, typically what happens, that first engine will get all the love while everything's getting done, and the second one gets wet. And there's no consistency to it.
Right. Yeah. So this is basically just puts it on a timer. So it runs. You say it runs on a battery, right? So basically, what this is a box, right? You hook up your hose to the bottom of it, and then it's got an on-off with a timer on it, and you can. How many will this hook up to? This one hooks up to 2 engines at the same time. So is there one that hooks up to more than 2 engines, or just?
So what the Flushmaster is, it's a portable automated device that for flushing outboards, and what it does, it's portable. You can either hook it directly to a hose, or you could hard plumb it to a dock. It's battery operated. It's a sealed battery compartment run by 3 AA batteries.
Okay.
The unit actually is backlit, so you can see it in the dark. There's a battery life indicator. And this is a 2-port unit that can be used for singles or twins, but it also comes in a 4-port unit that can be used from singles up to quads. So say, for example, you have a customer that has a large center console that has multiple outboards, or 3 or 4, but he also has a little boat for the kids or a flats boat or something of that nature. He can both use the quad for the quads and then also take this down just to use it as a single unit operation as well.
Okay, so staying on this topic of people not flushing it, if you've got 2, 3 engines, same thing, the convenience of you flush out the starboard, now you got to move over to the center or the port, and now that's a hassle because you're stumbling over all the rigging. So with this, you got 2 of them, right?
Right.
So my question is, if we'll get to time and how long an engine.
That was an audio indication that is now either timed out or it's turned off.
I thought the electricity was going on. My battery backups are popping up. I'm like this.
Great. That was the Flushmaster telling you it's done.
Okay, good. So I was going to say, does it regulate? We'll get to the time and how long people should flush their outboard. But one thing is the volume. So if one hose comes in, is that just a splitter in there, or is it timed per each engine?
That's
because
a great question.
You're going to be a volume, like if you just split 4 engines off one hose, that is not enough volume of water to flush an engine.
Correct. As you know, in order to properly flush an engine, that motor needs to be peeing pretty hard like it's running, right?
Right.
So all of those internal passages are getting plenty of volume and flushed out adequately. A lot of time guys will try to use a splitter and flush both engines at the same time to eliminate the time factor, right?
Right.
They're cutting it in half. Well, what they're doing is they're actually cutting the volume of water in half.
Right.
And the larger displacement engines, it may pee, but it may be peeing like an 80-year-old man in the middle of the night.
Right.
Versus, hey, I really got to go.
So you're not flushing out the top of the block. So your top 2-3 cylinders might not be getting any water.
They might be getting wet, but are they getting flushed?
Right,
So that's the beauty of the Flush Master, is that it actually flushes each engine one at a time, so you get a consistent, adequate flush, every time.
Mm-hmm.
The unit only, there's no pump involved, so it's delivered whatever volume and pressure it has. It delivers to the engine. So sometimes there may be a challenge with somebody that has inadequate, volume or a size pipe going out to the end of their dock. They may have a half-inch line trying to go 300 feet. So they may have
no water pressure.
They may have the pressure, but they won't have the volume. So
that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's, I've learned a lot about hydrodynamics and hoses and everything else, and we can get into that a little bit later about our customer service and what we've done in the process of launching the Flush Master and making sure it's adequate and it's really what people need, and we're going to stand behind everything we got. So.
Gotcha. So it does. So it'll set a timer and it'll flush one engine, and then after whatever. Now you set the timer, or how?
That's a great question as well. So every engine manufacturer, regardless if it's Mercury, Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, they all recommend about a 15-minute flush. And that flyer you have there, it was interesting. You and I were talking earlier, like, how long do you flush an engine? And that's a question a lot of people don't know. They're like, oh, I don't know I don't know.
Yeah, I generally say 5 to 10 minutes. I think, I guess it'll also kind of depend on what kind of water you're running in. Like if you're running in, fresh water in the middle of Idaho, then the water's probably not as mineral rich and probably doesn't need a 15-minute flush. A 10-minute might do it. But if you're in salt water or brackish water, you kind of need that time to break that stuff down.
And it's interesting, but every owner's manual recommends a 15-minute flush, and right there in the Mercury it says turn on it halfway and flush for about 15 minutes.
Yep.
If you consult your own owner's manual, which
they all do.
Yeah, everybody reads every instruction they ever get.
There's some people that read those a lot, though. I mean, like you'd be surprised. There are people that
who reads them a lot? Attorneys.
Oh yeah. Well.
And here's what happens, and the delta if you don't flush. Right. So think of flushing as a smoking habit, right?
Okay.
And if you don't smoke, you don't have a problem. And if you flush your engines every time you use the boat, you're not going to have a problem. But if you have a cigarette here and there, is it going to kill you? No.
Right.
But if you have a cigarette every day, it's going to kill you. So you have to flush your engines. Much like smoking. If you don't flush the engines, the corrosion eats a little way at a time, and it becomes a cancer. So that's kind of why I use that analogy of a smoking. It's not going to kill you this time, but it's going to kill you.
Yeah. And for those people that buy like a brand new outboard and they, you spend $20,000-$30,000, do you want that to last 5 years or do you want that to last 30 years?
And the other thing about it is, when somebody buys that brand new boat and they're very meticulous about washing it down, and I got lazy at the end, and that's the one piece of equipment that's been in salt water, So that's the one thing. If you don't do anything else, that's the one thing you should do is flush your engine.
You're constantly running salt water through every internal passage of the engine.
And what's interesting is when we launched, the first one we ever sold was down in Pompano.
Okay.
And the second one we sold was up in Michigan.
That's
the
interesting.
The third one we sold was in Arizona. And we all went like, what? Well, obviously, I'm here in Florida as well.
Right.
And I don't have the experience with invasive aquatic species versus zebra mussels, milfoil, and there's all a host of other organisms, and whether it be animal or plant-based, that in some watersheds and some, some freshwater bodies that
Yes.
you have to be very particular about rinsing and flushing everything you have before you even leave the watershed of the ramp.
Yeah.
So
I've seen just recently there was like an $11 billion program that was for like Michigan and Illinois and something. I want to say it was an invasive carp or something like that that was going on. And then I've also seen the zebra in California and
So this is an easy way to regulate that. Okay, set it up, hook it up. You're doing all the other things you got going on, but it's already done when by the time you need to be done doing all the other stuff you need to do. So it does have freshwater applications. It's interesting that has been a market that we didn't really anticipate.
Yeah, I don't know what the water, because obviously the minerals and the salt that's in the water is what the problem is. It's not necessarily, freshwater. In some freshwater, you might be using your well water or some other freshwater. You might have some really dirty water. There's places that have really dirty. It's freshwater, but there's minerals and things that are in the water that makes it really dirty and harmful. So I don't really know, Arizona, because you said that was the third person that bought one was in Arizona. I wonder what. I don't have a lot of experience in that area
but it was a zebra mussel because I called him. I'm like, what are you using this for? He's like, what do you mean? I'm flushing my out. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, why?
Yeah.
So that was an interesting unintended benefit of using the Flushmaster, where somebody uses it for something that's, I guess, right.
Yep.
So interesting.
Yeah, I think something else that people don't want to, like a reason they don't wash it is they don't think that it does anything, which I think it does quite a bit. And 15 minutes is, it seems like a long time, doesn't it?
It does.
So if we're saying how many gallons an hour did you say is normally out of a garden hose? Say you got 40 psi.
You're gonna be even at 15 minutes. You're gonna be probably 100 gallons of water.
Really? Because I'm also trying to think of, I know of some people that are on, like if you're on a well or something like that, people don't have this unlimited supply of water. There was somebody that I had spoken with. I think he uses a tank. Like he uses a tank in order to flush out. He's got barely any water. And
that's the beautiful part about this is that you can set the time of duration of flush down to a minute to 60 minutes for whatever you want to do. So it comes pre-programmed for 15 minutes. That's because every engine manufacturer recommends that.
Right.
But again, given your application and given the way you want to do whatever you want to do, it's adjustable very easily.
Well, do you have a 9.9 horsepower outboard or do you have a 350? You know what I mean? There's a big difference in the amount of water that you need to flush on a 20 horse.
You said something interesting is like, do you have to do it? Well, I can tell you, if you ever have a overheating issue or if you ever have kind of a temperature-related issue and you take it to your dealer and they crack it open and they see salt corrosion or they see indications that you haven't flushed your engine, 99% of the time, if they see any type of that, warranty denied. So it's one of those things that, it doesn't hurt. Oh, it doesn't hurt. Oh, that hurt.
Yep.
That hurt when it did hurt.
Yeah, because it could be, like we're saying, the people that put the T on there and they cut their volume in half, and now on the top of the heads, that's going to get to me. I'm like, what's happening? But it's if they tear down the top of the engine, the top of the cylinder heads, because there's very small passages up there that could be packed full of whatever, the mussels or something like that. So you're in freshwater and you've got their zebra mussels or
there's zebra.
I'm not sure what I think it is zebra mussels.
Zebra mussel, and there's milfoil up in the northeast, and there's all kinds of things.
So you got stuff like this that's packing up the top of the engine. Now when you run that engine and you run through a patch of weeds, you run shallow, you get into grass, you run in shallow at the sandbar. Now you're picking up sand, grass, dirt, weeds, whatever. That's going to hit those mussels or those blockages that were just forming, and now all of a sudden,
like cholesterol.
Like a heart problem. You're like,
and it does. It's not going to happen all at once. It could,
Yep.
But it's going to not start. It's not going to be cooling right, and then okay, something's going on. You take it, dude. You've been flushing. You haven't flushed this engine. Yeah, I have. Well, my eyes tell me you haven't done it appropriately.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's
exactly.
Those any kinds of part warranties, they're going to be denied immediately.
Well, yeah, because they call that, it's a maintenance item. It's a
This is the one routine maintenance that every boater can accomplish. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why anybody shouldn't do it other than I don't want to do it this time.
What do you think the ratio of people that flush versus don't flush is?
I would say the people that don't flush adequately is on the much higher side than those that do.
That's what I was thinking. I was trying to think of a number that I could safely say, but every number I could think of, because I'm thinking like 80% don't, and then I'm like, I know a lot of people that flush, and I'm thinking 50% don't. I'm like, I know a lot of people that don't flush. So I'm like,
right.
Where would...
So like, you go around the country, and if somebody's running up a river, the guys in Louisiana,
yeah,
I'll pay you to find me somebody that flushes their engine.
Right.
However, if you understand the water they're running in, just like you said, there's a bunch of gunk and debris and turbid water that run up the Mississippi.
Yep.
That stuff gets caught up in those smaller passages, and it kind of works like cholesterol.
Yep.
So
whereas somebody up in, say, Wisconsin that's running this cool,
Crisp,
clean,
right.
snow-fed water, it's like, Outboards 60 years old, never flushed a day in his life. So it's like,
you got a point.
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, anything down.
And it's interesting. So people have asked, can we introduce, salt away solutions? The salt's gone.
Okay.
Those types of things.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's two schools of thought, right? There's people that want to do it every time. Brand new engine, whatever. Mm-hmm. My thought, obviously it's not going to hurt anything. But if it's kind of one of those things, if you're doing it right the first time, if you're not cut, why do you need a Band-Aid? But then again, ace bandages are good for support.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It's very easy to introduce those types of solutions, whether you want to do it, on the inlet side, if you're doing a single engine, or if you're doing twins, you would want to do it on the hose side line.
Right.
There's even, people are very creative. I had one guy using a single. He wanted to flush the engine for 10 minutes with fresh water and the last 2 minutes with a straight salt solution.
Which is probably the better way. And the reason, go ahead.
So what he did was took both lines into a T, but had the salt solution on the one side, on port number 2. Mm-hmm. So when it ran the first side, it ran right through the T.
The other side.
And then the second, right through, and it just hooked up. It was ingenious.
So can you do the first side for 15 minutes and the second side for 2 minutes?
Mm-hmm. You can adjust the time for anything you want to do.
Per outlet. So, that's really good, because that's something that a lot of people might not know. I didn't know this for a long time, but any of those salt away products or stuff like that. So they're not necessarily something, it's not an after the fact type of product. Right. So once something builds up, it doesn't necessarily break it down to get rid of the buildup.
Right.
It's a preventative thing. And what it is that in the salt, I'm going to get this wrong. I'm not a chemist. So, but from my understanding and from people that I've talked with that, know these kinds of things, what it is, the salt is like the ions and stuff to make it up. There is a positive and a negative. And when everything dissolves, the water evaporates, the salt's left behind, and those two charges will basically create like a little shock there. Mm-hmm. So what salt away, salt off, all those products do is they dissolve that salt so that way it gets rid of it, but it cleans everything in it. So if you run your fresh water and you run the salt away, but then you continue running the fresh water, you're washing away all that solution. Right. So you're not even doing anything. Right. So you have to you flush
it. Put the Band-Aid on and took it off.
Yeah, you put it on and then took it off. Which you don't really, I didn't know that for a long time. Right. And so, that's really interesting. And I like that you can do the after the fact. Yep. I mean, which would work for a single, but if you had quads or something like that, that's obviously another task.
There's other ways you could plumb it to accomplish the introduction of those juices.
Right.
And the Flushmaster itself made flushing engines easier, right? So connect, start. It takes that 30-minute task
Yep.
literally into a few seconds, right? So
Yeah, you just hit the start button.
and walk away,
Like,
right? You don't
because
have,
you got
you
the
don't
quick
have to think
connects,
about it, right?
So you just hook your quick connects up and then hook it up. So all right, let me ask you this. So the quick connects, are they like a one-way valve in there? Can you leave these on the engine?
They are designed to permanently replace the OEM plug in the engine.
So you put this on there, and when the engine's running, because that's part of the reason that a lot of people that make flush quick attachments is that you don't realize that water flows in one way, but when you put your cap on there to stop the flush, it's water's always in that hose. You know, when your engine's running, there's always water in that hose. So if you just take the cap off, you're going to be pouring water out the side.
Right.
So without some sort of a checkway valve there, you know, the quick connects.
So Mercury's, so all the engine manufacturers have designed their flush connections slightly different.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, Mercury has that OEM plug on the side of the engine that 95% of the time you have a real challenge even getting it out of the engine.
On any of the V8 V6s,
right.
Yep.
And that was the reason why we developed the Mercury Quick Connect.
Okay.
Because the challenge of even getting to the flush connection was a real
the
pain.
hose is only this far, and when you pull it out, it's like, oh,
right.
that's it.
But
it's
even the older models, you can't get that plug out of the side of the cowl. Like, you literally have to take a pair of pliers. And here's a funny story, and I swear to you, it's 10,000% true. There was a Marine Max in St. Petersburg, bought one of these guys, said, hey, you know, let's flush this boat. It's a brand new, I don't remember what it was, but it was twin 300 Mercuries.
Yep.
I'm like, great, let's flush the boat. Tech, sales manager, parts manager, and sales guy that sold the boat. All of us down on the dock. I'm like, sweet, let's go. First tech couldn't get the plug out. And the other guy's like, you know, like,
laughing at him.
Like, I know exactly what you're doing. So he jumps down and starts messing with the other one. He can't get it out. So the first guy gets up, goes up to the shop, grabs a pair of pliers. Literally, we are 22 minutes into this conversation. We haven't hooked a boat up to we haven't hooked a hose up to the boat yet. And I looked at the guy. I looked at the service manager. I'm like, hey, do you think your customers are actually going to do this? Because if I'm inexperienced, right? So there's a lot of boaters that really enjoy boating, but like they said that was it, but it's not. I don't want to break it.
Right? Yeah.
That can't be it. So they don't flush the engine.
There's no way that it's this hard to do.
There's no way that's where I got to attack.
Right.
So that was why we developed the Mercury Quick Connect, right? So we designed the Mercury Quick Connect to mimic the OEM plug. So if you look at that plug itself, there's two holes. It's got a concave surface, and there's two holes in that.
Yep. So that way, if your flush T-fitting fails, like, which it's not really a fail, if you get sand, grass weight, anything up in there, it holds it open, and you will leak water out that fitting.
So guess what we did? We designed ours to have that same visual indicator that there's an issue.
Yep.
I didn't say it failed because it may just be stuck open.
It could, like I said, a piece
there's
of grass.
Million things
Yep.
But if you have that in that concave surface of it and it's just a weep, you don't typically see it weep out of the thing because then it'll run down the side of the engine.
Yeah.
And you don't, unless it's spraying out and it's wide open, you don't necessarily tend to see it. But when it drips off of this cap,
it's noticeable.
You see it dripping. And that's one question we get often is, hey, I put your Mercury Quick Connect in and now it's dripping. What's wrong with these things? There's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah. It's your flush valve.
Exactly.
Yep.
So the other challenge we have, and you'll see that's in our Mercury Quick Connect packages, and everything that you need to use our units, everything you need to use the Flush Master is included in the box. There's batteries, there's a screwdriver, there's hose fittings, there's hose, everything that you need to use this outside of water, right?
Right.
Everything you need to.
What about batteries?
Yep. Batteries are included.
That's one thing that you buy something.
Everything,
no batteries.
batteries are included. and just like, these guys, everything you need to install the Quick Connects are in the package. So you'll see that the Quick Connect was there, the female for the hose side. On some of the Mercuries, you need the elbow. So on the L6s, their flush line was really long.
Oh yeah, L6 is a breeze. Everybody loved that.
Right.
That was the big problem is L6. You pull it out, boom, pull it out. It's like this long.
Right.
And everybody loved it, but then people would repower with the V6, V8, and oh my gosh.
Right, and that flush line's like this long.
Yeah, you got nothing.
And when you pull it out, there's a kink in it.
Yep.
So when the way the flushing system works, when that plugs in, Who cares if there's a kink? Because we're not pushing water in the engine.
Yeah.
So you open that up and extend the plug to attach the hose to it.
Yep.
There's no kink. But with the flush connectors, that's always in.
Yep.
So if we were to use the flush connector with the original female on the inside, it kinks on the backside and doesn't allow the engine to flush. So we have included an elbow to eliminate that kink for that reason. Do all Mercuries need this? No. But we include it to take that decision, do I or don't I? You know, an easy way to think about it, do I need it? If you open your flush plug and you can see a kink in that line or you can feel a kink in that line, you need the elbow.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to say, do I need it or not?
Well, they lightened everything up on that engine, and it's a V engine. It's packed in there, so there's not much. You take the cowling off, there ain't no space.
There's not much room. But you can flip that female connector out.
Yep.
Cut it to where you just cut it right where that kink is. Install that. It's a very simple installation, and I'm going to rate my mechanical skills of probably a 2 out of 10. Okay, and I can do it pretty easily. So it's not something that you have to take it to your dealer to do. But again, if you're not mechanical, it's a 5-minute installation for somebody that's capable.
Yeah, somebody's got a pair of pliers or a razor knife.
So one of the other differences, so we talked about the Mercury Quick Connect having the visual indicator of the check valve, right?
Yep.
Suzuki is completely different. Suzuki, that screw, there's two flush ports on a Suzuki, one in the front, one in the back. And it's a plug that sits into a metal threaded female in the engine. So in order to attach a hose to a Suzuki, you have to back twist a hose enough to get it to sit and hope you don't cross thread it and booger up those threads. If you don't have that plug in the engine, it's going to be pouring water out of the front of that or the back of it. So you have to have the plug in or the engine could potentially overheat.
Right.
You know? So, we designed these guys to mimic how that plug works. So the way this plug works, it has an O-ring here on the male shaft, but it also has an O-ring on the top of the cap.
Okay, yep.
So this cap is designed to hold the pressure of the Suzuki back pressure when the engine's running. Interestingly enough, Cito International, there's several affiliates that are using our products, and they've learned that if they're doing ungroundings and stuff like that, they'll open up both sides and just blow the sand through the top of the engine instead of trying to get it out through the exhaust and out through the pee hole and whatever. So they've had a lot of, let's just say they're very enthused with our products because think about their captains at the end of the day. They don't want to stand there and wait 30 minutes, 45 minutes to do that task they have to do, but they got to stand there and do it.
Yep. Well, I think that would probably be good for a lot of those FWC, the Coast Guard, charter captains. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I know the number one people that I know that don't flush are charter captains because, well, I mean, for a couple different reasons.
I've gotten all the feedback as well. But go ahead.
So, I mean, a lot of them, they'll put some of them will put 2,000 hours on an engine in a year.
With no question. Right?
With ease. So to them, it
doesn't matter.
By the time I get done, it matters not to me because in 3 years I'm getting a new engine.
It doesn't matter.
And I care less. I got 6,000 hours. You think I'm running that?
Right.
So on that side, I understand that no flushing. But for the other ones like the Coast Guard and the FWC, I mean, companies that get 10, 12, 14,000 hours on an engine because they
take care of it.
They take care of it. So, them I could definitely see. And they're running, some of them, they run shifts. So they'll run a boat out on a shift for 12 hours, come back to the dock, leave the engines running. The next crew will get on the boat and they're right back out. So
you said, to go back to the top of the podcast, why doesn't somebody flush their engines? That guy in this is a 34 Jupiter with Trip 300 Yamahas.
Okay, yep.
The guy's 65 years old, and I said, hey, walk me through your flushing process at the end, because the guy's meticulous about cleaning everything else. He's meticulous about there's a spot on the eyes and glass, or there's he's like that guy. Don't get a piece of grass on anything.
Yeah.
Walk me through your process, and then the day he's like, I don't flush them.
Really?
I'm like, what?
Out of everything else.
Of all the things that you're going to neglect, he goes, I'm 65. I'm not climbing back there and I'm not twisting this, I'm not twisting that. He goes, I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yep. I've got that same thing. Like we've done things where we've added certain, we've gone in the engine, cut a thing, put a T in it, and ran a hose out to the top. Same thing because, somebody that's 65, 70 years old, they don't want to get on the transom and bend over and try and, do that. Like you said, that's
it's not worth him trying to get there to potentially may get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So I installed the Flush Master with the Yamaha Quick Connects on his boat, and he's
like,
Jesus, and literally because he can reach back with one hand, reach the engine instead of having to get back there to twist, to twist, to twist, to twist, to twist, to twist. And so there's no more screwing around when you use the Quick Connects. Literally, he's like with that trip setup, he's done with the task in less than a minute. Grab the 3 hoses, connect, on,
hit
start,
on, yep.
Go do whatever you else need to do.
That's what that one's probably really good for too. Is that one's got a suction cup on it, so you could just stick that one right on the back of the boat.
Yeah, so it's a portable unit, and there's to use it very versatily. You can use it portably in the cradle if you're on a dock that has multiple boats on it.
Yep.
If you're a guy on a trailer that uses that from here to there or whatever, the suction cup really makes it easy because it's got somewhere to be. And there's also we also have a portable storage bag that goes along with it. So for somebody that's maybe going over to the Bahamas or traveling with their boat or anything like that, it's very easy to take along with you.
Just tie it right up to whatever dock you're on and stick it right in your boat.
Yep.
And so I guess even with the Quick Connects, because most everything's garden hose. So like people that already have Quick Connects in their boat, you can, because some of the engines now, the newer stuff, they're running the flush lines through the rigging tubes and out into the boat.
That's a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up. Regulator, Grady White, Sea Hunt, and I believe Invincible are now rerouting their flush connections into the cockpit to make it an easier connection.
Yes.
And just like a Suzuki, so if you don't have that male in there, it's going to be peeing water out of it when the engines are running. So you got to have those male plugs in that Perco inlet or outlet rather.
Right. However they've built it into the boat.
Guess what? Our Suzuki Quick Connects work in conjunction with that system very easily to go connect, done.
So it's even there, but there's no forgetting to go and switch it over, because a lot of those you got to turn a valve or you got to
So I just installed one of these a trip on a 34 regulator with a Trip 300 Yamahas, and they had that same manifold into the cockpit. Installed 3 of our Suzuki Quick Connects and the Flush Master, and the guy's like, "That's awesome!" Literally, he's like, "That's awesome."
Oh yeah. To anybody that flushes their engine, that's like, where all you got to do is press a button and forget about it. Like, I think that's
it takes the thought process out of it. So the one engine gets all the love, the other one gets wet.
Yeah.
No, with the Flush Master, they're both whatever configuration you have, it's done the same way, the right way, consistently, effectively every time. So you mentioned something earlier about the reroute kits. So we are not just we're constantly developing new products, and we're working on some interesting things. One is a reroute kit.
Oh, okay.
Because boat manufacturers are doing that on their own, and how do we?
Yeah,
do
there's
this?
a lot of them. Like Intrepid's been doing that for a long time.
Yep. So we are in the process of molding a manifold system to approach the OEMs with, hey, here's a kit to do that with.
Yeah.
But it's also could be an add-on or a retrofit for those DIY guys that have the aptitude to do it. We're also working on a automated trailer flush kit that incorporates the Flush Master. So there would be enough onboard volume for a flush, the load, the launch in the morning, hit the Flush Master, and it'll flush for 2 minutes as you go park the truck, and everything outboard, the torsion axles is irrigated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because if you're flushing out, you're flushing, if you can get it behind the fenders and get all over your trailer,
the thing about it is, if somebody's
that's something a lot of people don't spray off is their trailer.
and it's the one thing that gives you the most
Oh
headache.
gosh,
Right?
the hubs,
it's
the
the
axles,
one thing
the
that you're
spring,
like, oh my God, please don't, because that's the worst.
Yeah.
But you know, that's one of those things that, you know, we want to own the flushing category.
Okay.
And you know, we're continually developing new products, and I have something that I'd love to talk about, but I can't. But we're looking at doing some things with automating maybe some in-boat solutions and getting into that realm of things as well. But there's a lot of things we can do, and we're excited to get off the ground and start with the partners we have.
Right.
You know, we've launched nationally with West Marine. We're now getting into distribution with Land and Sea and Mesco and Donovan. So if you are interested in any of these products, talk to one of your local retailers or one of your, you know, where you have your service done. They now have access to these products.
Nice. And I mean, obviously you can get it online too.
Correct.
But
so here's one for you. And
okay.
me and you, being Floridians that have no idea what this thing called freeze is. But apparently there's this thing called snow and ice up north.
I don't go above the freeze line,
Yeah,
so I don't
no,
know.
I'm not moving north of the Florida line either.
Yeah.
But apparently, so if you have a multi-engine application, the Flushmaster can be used in that winterization process as well. So it's basically set it up and let it time through, so you don't have to sit there and watch it.
Right.
So it's interesting coming from Florida and all of the other uses that people see your technology being used in. It's interesting.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's another reason is that at the end of the day, you're so because we've already
you're wore out, man. Like, all right, somebody's got to clean the fish. I'm cleaning the boat.
Yeah. The last thing you want to do is sit out there and do that.
Yeah.
So it's really
or everybody's already up in the pool honey, we got to go to dinner, and so how about this? You know, it's like, that's going to take me 45 minutes to do at the dock. If I got the flush, I can fish 45 minutes.
Yeah, we don't have to go back
spend
now.
More time on the water, less time on the dock. You know,
yep, 100%. I'll do it in the morning, and then the morning never comes.
Well, so just like I said with the trailers, you know, the effects of corrosion happen within the first 8 hours.
Yeah,
and you know if somebody's even diligent about rinsing their trailer when they get home, or you know, flushing their engine tomorrow, it's already happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
When the salts, you know, the first 6 hours, first 8 hours, it crystallizes, and all the harm, really the exponential part of the corrosion happens in that first 6 hours. So if you can eliminate that early on and get it, you know, flush the engine and flush the trailers immediately. That's the best solution. That's
what I try to tell everybody about flushing is that if you think about it, like the engine, a lot of the thermostats open up depending on the brand, model, all that kind of, you know, let's say 120 to 160 is when the thermostats open up. So if your engine's running at 140, 150 degrees, water boils at 212 degrees. So when you turn that engine off, that engine is 140, 150 degrees. The temperature is going to go up because now it's not running cooling water. So by the time you leave the ramp and, you know, let's say you drive an hour, you go get dinner, you get gas, you do this, you do that, it doesn't take more than, maybe a half hour before all the water is evaporated.
Right.
Because it's all boiled off.
Right.
So you know, honestly, you need to flush like as quick, you know, as soon as you turn the engine off, that's when you need to.
That's the best time.
Yep.
But if you can't do it immediately after, do it as soon as possible.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. So having something like this around in the boat makes it a lot easier because honestly, that should be the first, you know, hook the engines up, turn it on, and now go wash the boat and all that stuff.
Yeah. Get all the stuff you got to pick up and organize and get off the boat before you start washing the boat. By the time all that's done, that's already done.
Yep.
You don't realize how much time those tasks take. But if you're having to think about doing that, and here's the other thing, right? How long does it take you to unscrew and screw and screw and unscrew and screw and unscrew and screw and unscrew? It's like, okay, with the quick connects, it's a quick, done. And there's I've also had the question of, can I use the Flushmaster without the quick connects? Yeah, you can use a Flushmaster just like you would any normal garden hose.
Yep. Do those spin? Oh, the fitting on the thing. Right. The ones that I was thinking about are like the old Optimaxes, the two strokes, some of the Suzuki where you got to turn the hose back and then flip it in. So
that was the interesting part about why we developed the quick connects.
Right.
So I took a quad unit of ours with 5-foot hoses to a quad 350 Suzuki boat.
Okay.
And realized I couldn't twist the hoses back enough to get it to seat.
Yep.
And I looked at my partner. I was like, hey, if we don't have a quick connect, this thing doesn't work with Suzuki's.
All right.
So
that's a problem.
Literally, March 17th of last year, I looked at him like this. And by November, we had the designed-in packaging ready for sale for market, doing testing as well.
Right.
And, you know, people have asked, you know, well, how does this work? You know, so our caps are a twist-to-lock scenario. So you'll notice on our caps itself, there's two out-protruding tits right here. Ours is a twist-to-lock cap. So it won't come off until you twist it to unlock it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's an inherent feature that we designed into the caps themselves. Yep. So it's a twist-to-lock configuration. Want to get into customer service with you just a little bit.
Okay.
And when we launched and you go, okay, you always find new things about the product. Okay, we need to do this, we need to do that. You know, there's always ways to improve things.
Right.
And when we launched the Flushmaster with a 3/8-inch diameter hose because the internal cooling systems of most engines outside the V8s and V10 Mercs now are 3/8-inch lines. So we're like, okay, we'll just mimic what's inside the internal lines and realize that we had a customer down in Pompano that had twin 350 Yamahas. And those large displacement Yamahas are really thirsty. I mean, they take a large volume of water
it's a big block
to adequately flush them. And, you know, we went down, he bought it. He's like, man, this thing's not peeing right. So we went through the pressure gauges and it had plenty of pressure, but it was one of those
volume
length of distance between. And he's like, it's not really working the way I want it to work. Can I return it? I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I went back to Cayman. I'm like, we need to do something here because if we had an issue with those, we're going to have an issue with somebody else. Yep. So we took the very conscious decision at that early point in our history to revamp the entire inventory from 3/8-inch hose to 1/2-inch hose to eliminate any of those issues. Yeah. Was that cheap? No, but it was the right thing to do. And, you know, if somebody does have an issue with one of our products, I want them to feel like I'm glad I had an issue because they're probably going to talk to me. You know, I want to know what happened so we can address that issue as we move forward. And the customer service and the way we stand behind our products is, I'll stand with it 10,000%.
Well, it's nice to get that kind of feedback too, because like you said, I mean, with the V12, V10, the 450, I mean, the bigger blocks,
they're only going to get bigger.
Yeah, a 3/8 ain't going to cut it.
Nope.
I mean, they need 1/2-inch fuel lines, so
right.
They're drinking water and fuel.
Right. And you know the 600 horsepower Mercs, they don't have an external flush connection.
They don't have a P.
Right.
They don't have a telltale.
Neither
if you want a telltale, you got to buy it. It's a kit after the fact, like you know.
Yeah. So it's interesting. But yeah, we're really excited about all the things we got going on, and the Flushmaster has, you know, the price point on it. You know, a lot of guys are like, man, it's a couple $100. Yeah. What's a couple $100 at the end of the day? Yeah. When somebody think about this, I mean, how many guys do you know that go fishing and take every fishing rod they have in their entire arsenal? And there's some expensive rods.
$50,000.
There's some expensive, and they're just going to go around, get sloshed in the salt water, and get beat up on the dock, and never touched all day. Yep. This is a product that when you go boating, you're going to use it every time you use the boat. It's really less than a quarter tank of fuel, if you think about it at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, if you think at $4 or $5 a gallon fuel, I mean, right now I'm not sure what it is like for. I think it's 4 something right now for Rec 90. You know, obviously, you know, $3.50 for ethanol fuel. So let's say it's $4 a gallon, 200. You're 50 gallons. So, you know,
it ain't much.
It ain't much. That's one trip for a lot of people. Right. You know,
and think about if you use your boat over, and you know, if you're a heavy boater or a moderate to heavy boater, how much is your time worth? Like, think about it. I don't want to sit there and wait and do that and. Sit there and wait and do that, and no. That's why at the end of the day people get lazy with it because they're like, I'll just do it tomorrow. But tomorrow comes and they don't do it. It's just one of those, you know, smoking related cancers that's going to build up over time, and it's going to get you at some point.
Yeah. Well, with the quick connects and the timer, it's 2 clicks and a button.
There's no excuse not to do it.
Yeah.
There's no excuse, because it literally takes the lazy out of it.
Which is probably also another thing that will make people do it. So like if you spent $200, a couple $100 or whatever it is, I'm not sure, price point wise.
So the 2-port with 12-foot hoses is right around the $300 price point.
Okay, so for $300, that's something that $300 is now gonna force you to flush your engine.
Mm-hmm.
So because a lot of people don't look at things like that. When things are free, a lot of people don't really use them. It's like, YouTube information, experiences, this, that, it's
somebody
free. So
that's
yeah.
But if I bought the hat, I'm going to wear
it. Yeah, exactly. When you got to put your money out there, it's like, I'm going to use that. Like, yeah. So it's kind of almost like a psychological thing. So if flushing is one, you're like, you don't ever do it, but you would like to, this is something that might make you do it.
And it's one of those things. It's like, okay, what do you get the guy that's got everything? Right?
Yeah.
So your dad, your buddy, whoever it is, your husband, whoever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make his life easy. Get him a gift that he's going to use, right? It's not like, okay, check that out.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you what, he's not going to hate it.
No.
He's not going to hate it.
And there's a lot of people out there that are like that. Like, people, once you get to a certain time in your life, a lot of times people, when you're young, that's when you want all these gifts. But as you get older, you're like,
I want it, I got it.
Yeah, if I want it, if I need something, I'm just gonna go get it. And those people, it's very hard to get gifts for someone like that, because a lot of people stop buying ridiculous nonsense at a certain age. You stop buying, just to buy stuff.
And for those guys that are in the boat business and they're marine sales, like you want your customer not to buy one boat from you. You want them to buy 2, 3, 4, 5 boats, because of the relationship and the stickiness of your service and all the other things.
Right.
So why are you going to buy that customer a bottle of wine?
Yeah.
Buy them something, like give them a gift that they can actually use in the water, and like every time they use it, we're like, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that guy. Thank you.
That's true.
I
didn't think about that.
It's gotten a lot of traction through that avenue. It's like when somebody buys a new boat.
Mm-hmm.
What do they get with the new boat? They get dock lines. They get a wash kit. They get
Coast Guard kit. Well,
here's an easy way to maintain those $80,000 of engines you got on the back of your boat.
Yeah, and that's
the one task the owner's going to do.
Yeah, that's the one thing that they don't do. Like they
but that's
don't
the one
flush
thing
them.
That they could do.
Yeah,
right? Like in an average typical boater, they're not going to change the oil and do the 100-hour service. No,
you take it to the dealer and they do that.
But they can flush it.
They can flush it, and it's going to make a big difference too, because you buy a $100,000 boat. Well, 35,000 of that is the engine.
Yeah.
So 40% of your boat value is right there.
Back there, and if you don't flush it and you have a warranty issue, it's on you.
Yep.
And there was actually one customer I walked into, and I introduced the flush maze. It's funny you walked in right now, and there was a 22-foot sail, 23 or 24-foot sailfish with twin 200 Yamahas. 88 hours, completely totaled, because the internal combustion, the internal cooling system had barnacles growing in it.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't just corroded. The thermostat was actually fused shut by a barnacle.
Wow.
A barnacle was growing. It was like, I can't do anything with this. And I was like, can I have those thermostats, please? Because that's one, it's, visual proof that if you don't do it, this is what happens.
It happens. That's a lot of maintenance items. People don't think about that. Like, when it comes to warranty, you think, okay, if I just do a late oil change, if I push the oil change off by 100 hours, if I just skip this one, that stuff makes a big difference, because like going to the thermostat and the cooling system, the oil filter cleans the oil and picks up debris. Over time, it gets dirty. It can't flow the oil. Now, all of a sudden, you're losing oil pressure. Things are getting hot. You're going to have a failure. Same thing with the thermostats or in the cooling system. Things are not, it's not cooling properly. It's getting hot. In a hot spot on the side of the engine that's away from your temperature sensor, if the engine can't really tell you got a hot spot down here, you could potentially have a big problem down here, like the valve covers, any plastic parts. The plastic could melt, and you lose oil, engine blows up,
That's on you, pal.
That's on you.
That's on you, pal. Right.
So like, yeah, it's a big deal that, you know.
And what we've done with the Flushmaster is give you no reason why you can't accomplish that task very simply by attaching it with quick connects or screwing it in.
Yep.
And pressing a button and walking away from it. It is a 140 psi shutoff valve, so if you're hard plumbed to a dock, you never have to worry about turning the water on or off. It's a simple on and start. So if you go into our website and like if you follow us on Instagram, there's a bunch of videos of the installs and using the. So you'll see that there's one video where we're flushing a quad Freeman with 400s in under less than a minute.
Really?
Yeah. So you connect, on, you're done. Now,
yep.
Coolers, fishing rods, everything else from a long day offshore. There's you don't clean up the boat in 5 minutes. There's a process. There's a task list to accomplish.
So let's say 12 feet, someone needs more than 12 feet. Yep. They just go get a garden hose, cut it, and crimp it?
No.
Okay.
Great question. This is EDPM hose. It won't degrade in its UV.
Sun.
Yep. It won't mar the boat. It stays supple. It's not going to get cracked. It's not going to get brittle.
It doesn't over time, it won't leave black marks on the boat, none of that?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. And that's the reason why we went with that hose itself.
Right. Yeah, because that's the reason I wouldn't flush mine. If I had to go get that thing, and every time I pulled the hose across the boat and it got black all over my white cushions.
Get that thing out of here. It's never coming back. It's never coming back. I don't care how good that thing is. No, it doesn't mar at all. You can actually go, I'm looking forward to your feedback.
Okay.
Because as when you and I talked about, and everybody that I've worked with, and everybody that we were that are using our products in a professional setting, if you will, is I don't want to pay you to tell me something.
Right.
I want your genuine and authentic feedback of your experience with it, because guess what? That's genuine and authentic, and that's what people want to hear.
Well, that's how you find out problems. And if you don't know you have a problem until 10,000 people have that problem,
you got a real problem.
You got a real problem.
Right.
But if you can, figure, I didn't even think about that, right. And you can fix it and boom, boom, like that's what you want. Like,
right.
If you're not making mistakes and learning, then
you ain't doing it.
You ain't doing it.
Right.
So,
and that's the really interesting part about who we are, is that we're not satisfied with the status quo of where we are as far as the product line is concerned. In our estimation, our mind's eye, this is a great start to the penetration of what the flushing category in boating and marine world can be. So we're very excited about exploring and developing those other products for in-boat solution and trailer applications, and jet ski connections and other
inboards, all
kinds of
diesel stuff like that. Because the diesel, you got
risers,
massive big block, like that's.
So there's a lot of challenges that come into that, and especially when it comes to volume of water. There's a whole lot of other things that go in that. But the onboard cooling systems and freshwater systems on boat that have muscle problems and growth problems as well, may be able to have some. We're thinking about how we can help that as well.
Yeah, that's a big market right there, because a lot of those places, a lot of those are Donzi ski boats, wakeboard boats, like a lot of them are inboard. So that there's that, but the hoses. So the length of the hoses, what do they do?
Yeah. So if you need a different length of hose, just contact us.
Okay.
And so the way we've gone to market, the 2-port and the 12-foot is our bread and butter retail SKU. So if you see the Flushmaster out in a store or in a dealer or anywhere else, typically it's going to be a 12-foot. And the reason why we went with the 12-foot is it covers 99% of the applications.
Okay.
So if you're installing it on your dock, and typically 12-foot run is enough. If not, give us a call. We can work through that. It's not a problem.
Okay.
The 4-port, we're coming out. We're really launching our product line with the 2-port with 12-foot hoses, and the 4-port with 12-foot hoses and 20-foot hoses. Because sometimes it's a little bit farther to get to that outboard side on that quad engine boat.
Yep.
So that's why.
And you take in, your dock is 4 or 5 feet long, and then you got, seawall, and then the water line's back here. So there can be.
And if somebody's like, for example, is Carter Andrews, for example, where he keeps his CV, it's a bow end lift, and the water is on a power pedestal at the bow. So how does he use it?
Yeah.
He uses it portably in a bag, right? So it just brings everything to the back of the boat, leaves it there because it's on a reinforced hose, starts it, goes away.
Gotcha.
So if your hose isn't, or if your water source isn't close enough to your engine, put it in a cradle. 12-foot typically reaches, and route it with a reinforced
Yeah, you
hose.
just take a hose to go.
Obviously, cheap garden hoses bubble and blow out.
Yeah.
So if you are going to go that route, obviously the bread and butter, or the best way to do it, is to hard plumb it, on the PVC and have a shutoff valve and all that other things to it. But if the easy way to get access to close to the boat is to hang it on the piling in a cradle and use it with that 12-foot, length of hose. So what are some of the things that happen if you don't flush? What are some of the telltale signs that you would get, or a customer would see, hey, it's run a little hot, or it's not peeing right, or when you get those questions of why should I flush an engine?
It's generally an overheat. That's the first. If you don't flush it, like you said, it takes time. So over time and it's not like a quick time too. It's 5 years, 6, 7 years past your warranty date. So about the time your warranty runs out, if you never flush your engine, depending on how you use it, if you're putting 10 hours on a year, obviously that you take that into a factor. But
if you're only using it 10 hours a year and you don't flush it, that engine is almost, you're going to have problems, because it's no way.
It's just sitting.
Yeah.
So, that's with those factors, but I'd say 5 to 10 years, you start to see overheating in different spots. And it's not, just changing the impeller and putting it back on there. You've got issues of all kinds of different stuff, overheating, your valve covers melting. You are,
there was a brand that was having midsection corrosion issues, if you don't flush out that exhaust system and that exhaust seating, those kinds of parts can be affected by corrosion.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. That one, early 2000s, it was only like one model that did. Yeah, there's 2 models that did it, but early 2000s, I think that was a defect.
A specific issue.
Yeah, that wasn't necessarily not flushing expedited it, but it didn't
exacerbated it.
Yeah, it exacerbated it.
That's what we're looking for.
But no, you can have head gasket problems. So because of the corrosion and the salt, on your head gaskets, the cooling system runs through there, and it could eat the gasket to where you'll start getting blow by. You'll be getting water into the oil. There could be thousands of different issues that you could see because of an overheat problem, which a lot of times only has to do with inside the cooling passages. Some of them are just just the size of a pencil, or maybe even smaller, that have a turn, and something gets stuck in there, whether that's sand, dirt, a muscle, growth, salt buildup, all of those things could do that. And flushing it, when you flush it regularly, it breaks that stuff up and gets it out of there.
Yeah.
So that's generally it's an overheat. It's always overheat.
So let me ask you, what do you think would be the easiest regular maintenance task that a inexperienced boater could do?
Well, they probably flush their engine.
Right. And what's the one thing that people fail to do on a regular basis?
Flush it. So
it's the easiest thing for anyone to do. It's the one task that you should do every time you use the boat.
The number one task that no one does.
And it's the number one task that people just whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, we've taken all that away by the use of the Flushmaster, the quick connects, connect, on, start, done. Yeah, it's really that easy.
Yeah, I like it.